Christopher Katzinski went to the Leipzig Graduate School of Management and is an AI strategist and consultant. I'm here to pepper him with questions about artificial intelligence. Thanks for coming on, Christopher.
Thank you so much for the invite.
I wanted to start with certain kind of just overviews, because AI, artificial intelligence, is not inherently, like any tool, it's not inherently good or bad. And I saw this one video about a good thing of AI, which was traffic lights. Right now, we know we have like old-fashioned kind of urban planning notions of traffic lights, but AI can assess whether hey, there's no traffic coming in this direction. I'm going to make the light green so you can go. There's no reason for you to wait at this red light for 2 hours. So those are some of the good things of AI. One of the things that I'm worried about, however, is kind of extrapolating out from that in terms of governance. Like, for instance, there was an article called Government by AI, and it says from OpenAI chief scientist Ilya Sutskever.
The ideal world I'd like to imagine is one where humanity are like the board members of a company where the AGI is the CEO. The picture which I would imagine is you have some kind of different entities, different countries or cities, and the people that live there vote for what the AGI that represents them should do. And an AGI that represents them goes and does it. And you could have multiple AGI. You would have an AGI for a city, for a country, and they would be trying to, in effect, take the democratic process to the next level.
Yeah, so absolutely. Like, as with everything, as with every technology, you always have like the opportunity to use it for good or for bad. You can use like a gun to kill somebody you want to murder, like for revenge, or you can use it in war to protect yourself. So also with AI, it's crucial to look at the intentions behind it. And we have, I think, now the opportunity to change the world for the better with AI if we do it in the right way. And so from my standpoint, we should focus on those applications that are beneficial for everyone, and not like use it for mass surveillance. Like, you could use it to basically screen every camera that is in the public space and just record live data, and then get facial recognition. You could like link it to the databases of the government and just identify persons in the public with AI. And that is a very nightmare scenario, if you ask me. So
I was watching some guys in China. They said that they were Westerners in China, and they said that the government there had used facial recognition software to identify one of the people. And he said he had walked through a public space, and he had walked over grass that you weren't supposed to be walking on, and they had a sign up saying "Do not walk on the grass." He's not even sure if he did it, but he was identified through facial recognition software, and they assessed a fine without any adjudication, without a judge, without a jury, without any additional proof, and it was extracted immediately from his bank account. And that's kind of government by algorithm is kind of terrifying to people who are used to due process.
It's exactly that, and I think we should approach it like an AI assistant, like amplifying human capabilities and not letting algorithms do the decision on their own. So it makes absolutely sense also in oncology, like cancer research, or for lawyers to get an AI or large language model preparing everything for them, so they don't have to read the whole process or the whole books, but they still have to make the final decision by themselves, AI assisted. So that would be the ideal case. And I think in China, they have somehow an advantage when it comes to their data, because they're already having a lot of mass surveillance, and they're already tracking that. So they could use that to train their models to make them even more efficient. And then making even more automated decisions also on the public space.
Well, one of the things too that it allows authoritarian governments is the ability to do evil things and then blame the algorithm. Like when you train a puppy, they tell you, if you hit the puppy, if it, has an accident on the carpet, hit it with a newspaper, a rolled up newspaper. You hit it with a rolled up newspaper and it associates the beating with the newspaper and not with you. You've outsourced that kind of thing. And so the same thing with an algorithm. If somebody unscrupulously wanted to, say, for instance, you have someone in government and they use the facial recognition software to stalk an ex-lover, or an ex-wife or something, and then they, somehow do something bad to that person, they could say, oh, well, it wasn't me, it was the algorithm that did it. And then they would evade accountability. The same thing with drone strikes. You could have, human rights atrocities, and then they blame the computer. And right now, I mean, there's law is having to, figure these things out. Like I was talking to a professor of law, and a lot of these things have not yet been properly legislated. Like who's responsible in, for instance, a self-driving car? Is it the person who was in the car who wasn't driving? Is it the manufacturer? Is it the programmer? We don't even know how to establish culpability.
Yeah, it's kind of like Wild West right now. Like I think ChatGPT came out one year ago, and yeah, we are now have. I'm based in Germany. We have the EU AI Act coming to make some regulation, and it's still there's a lot of gray areas. There's so much undefined where you could lose if you're not having any values. You could just go there and make a lot of money if you're just immoral, because it's just not regulated. And there are some efforts. But I think it's ambivalent. Like you don't have to, or you shouldn't regulate too much right now, because there's also a lot of innovation going on. I see that here, and in Europe we have a lot of startups that build upon those large language models. They don't train it themselves, but they build services and products. Mm-hmm. And for them, it would be very hard to invest now if they feel that in 1 year there comes a law that basically just classifies their solution as too risky for so that they just have to make the investments now, and they're following closely the EU AI Act, and they want to make sure that they make the right things and don't invest in something that is then prohibited.
Well, you made a point before we started talking on camera, and you said that there was, kind of legislation that was happening, or at least debates as to whether AI is going to be controlled in a centralized fashion, or are they going to let the people kind of utilize this as a tool that would spur innovation, would spur the economy. I was talking to a gentleman who does supply chain. His name is Jack Buffington. And he was talking about supply chain 1.0, that, since World War II, we've had this global supply chain, and it was based on cheap gasoline, but that may be falling apart. And he was saying that we need to do supply chain 2.0, which is his saying that we need a decentralized model that includes, blockchain, so that people could do peer-to-peer contracts, and also 3D printing and all these things, but it would be decentralized so that the average person has access to these technologies. And so you were concerned that, they would just legislate that AI would be under the control of centralized bureaucrats, and it would not be allowed to go down to the people. So
there are a few things or a few points I want to make. So it's called OpenAI, but it's basically not open. So you can go to ChatGPT and use it, but you'd never see like the details of the exact model, like the GPT 3.5 or GPT-4. That is proprietary software. And the thing is, they are having. I just had a paper that I've read. I think it's more than 60% of every AI traffic is going to ChatGPT worldwide. So they're basically the leader already. After 1 year, I think they crossed 1 billion users in 2 months worldwide. And now, a couple of weeks ago, this was this turmoil with Sam Altman leaving OpenAI, and I thought he signed for Microsoft, and then he came back. And what I think is that there are several theories, but basically the war that is going on also in Silicon Valley, but the major clashes between accelerationists and extinctionists on the one and the other side. And we have a lot of also non-profit organizations here in Europe that are trying to lobby in the EU AI Act to regulate based on the foundational level of these large language models. So you would classify a large language model like GPT-4 as would regulate on this layer instead of regulating on the application layer, which is what are you doing with that large language model. And I'm very happy that a couple of, I think, days ago, Germany, Italy, and France, they said that the EU AI Act in the current form is not acceptable, because I think they realize if they regulate that on that level, then that's over for the EU also to be competitive in any way. I mean, we're just, especially in Germany, we're so behind, not only in digitalization, also economically. And I think if we regulate that now in that way, then there's no chance to catch up to the USA and also to China in the middle to long term. So what they are doing now is more like regulating on, or trying to regulate on, the application layer. What are you actually doing with these large language models? And that is better also for the startups and people investing here in research and in companies and organizations to develop their tools ethically and also open source. And as you said, decentralized, because all the computation power that is needed to train such a large language model, I think they got like 10 billion from Microsoft, or 9 billion, and trained their models. And also Elon Musk with X, he trained a model like Rock in 3 months. But you have to have a lot of resources to do that. And for open source models, also what I'm exploring right now is decentralized infrastructure for like having GPU clusters worldwide, decentralized, and providing access to this infrastructure to all people. It's like democratization of the AI infrastructure and also of the models. And I think that is a path where AI will like benefit a lot of people and not just creating monopolies, because if we go that road, they have all the data, they have like everything that is going to OpenAI to their servers, they use it to retrain their models, they will get better and better. And then it's very hard to get more competition in that space.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a book called the Master Switch by Tim Wu, and Silicon Valley would have him come in and give speeches there. And the book is very interesting. It talks about like the succession of technological advances, like the horse and buggy leading to the automobile, the telegram leading to the telephone, and all this kind of stuff. And he notices a pattern in technology diffusion. And first, there's the Wild West period that we're in right now, where there's a million different iterations. Like, for instance, if you wanted to buy a car like 100 years ago, there would be all these different car manufacturers. And then there's a period of consolidation where you get like 3 or 4 large car manufacturers. And then if it goes so far, you just get one, you just get one, like AT&T was an example in my country of a telephone. Initially, when telephones first came out, there was a million little small, independent, decentralized telephone, companies. And eventually they get gobbled up by AT&T. And then the government had to step in with antitrust laws to break AT&T up because it had gotten too big. And but I'm not sure that, I think that you may be right. I mean, like, because of regulatory capture, because of the corporations taking over the government at this point, I don't think that the government would have the power or the will to be able to break up the final winner in that monopoly. 100 years ago they could have, but as for right now, I'm not sure that that's true. And I wanted to make a point really quickly. I have a friend named Mick Ashby, and he is a grandson of one of the founders of the cybernetics movement, Ross Ashby, and he wrote a paper, a very interesting paper on ethics and AI. And he was saying like how important it is. We're right on the cusp. If we do not have a real ethical framework, an ethical framework doesn't mean what they call ethics now is basically censoring people who question people in power, right? It's just like, we're going to censor you if you threaten our power. That's not ethics, and so you sent me 2 papers that you had written, dissertations, and I read them with great interest. Did you want to mention some of the points that you hash out there?
Yeah, so I think 5 years ago, or 5.5 years ago, I wrote my master's thesis on the chair of business ethics, and it was about the moral and also ethical responsibility of AI companies. And what I researched was I mean, back then there was even less regulation than there is now because nobody had AI on the radar. It was like, I mean, AI is not new. It's like the first AI conference was, I think, in 1956 or so. It was still, I just researched the existing regulation and I found that there are mostly self-regulation industry-wise, but also company-wise. So at that time, I worked at IBM and we had our own like ethical principles. I think that they are still applied now at IBM. And the main reason, I think, from what I've found there, I just solely mainly focused on the near-term ethical implications because right now there's a lot of people saying we have to focus on the long-term risks, like extinction risks, and I don't see that because if you understand how a large language model technically works, you wouldn't be too much concerned about, that it's going to. I think there's this famous example of this paperclip model that if you have the objective function to maximize paperclips, then the AI will like make everything in the universe to paperclips. But I think with alignment, and if you develop that ethically and transparent, you should be able to avoid that. So I would focus more on the near-term risks or ethical implications, which is usually about bias, firstly, because everything they use to train their models is in the internet and that's coming from humans and humans are biased. So you have to make sure, especially when you apply those models, for instance, if you go to a use case in recruiting and make scanning of CVs automatically and you just ignore people from different nationalities or religious backgrounds based on bias.
Well, that's happening in my country right now, where they're screening out white males, where the HR people will not even be allowed to see those resumes. So, I mean, there's it's being used for unethical purposes. It's being used for racial discrimination.
Yeah. So bias is a huge topic, but also everything related to the restructuring of the employment market, because I think already like in the last year since ChatGPT came out, several big companies announced that they will replace a lot of workers doing repetitive tasks with AI, and I think it directly links to my activities in education because I think that education is the key to counter those job losses because there will be new jobs that are created, fostering more creativity and potential tasks that are more like high level and not mundane and repetitive. But still, you have to think about how to this transition period will be hard because people are not skilled yet to do other things, and the AI is getting better and better. So there will be a transition period. And I think there it's important to think about stuff like you could send them people to educate, let them educate themselves on using AI to do another job. Or also what I read about was like a tax system, tax on machines, because I see it, I'm solopreneur mainly, and I see my like the productivity gains are just incredible. It's like 10x what I can do with AI in combination. And it's just intense value that is created that is not reflected in any like tax system or in any in any of that. So there are several ways to make this transition period also better, because I think most people are afraid of AI taking their jobs because on the one side they don't know how that actually works. They're thinking it is some kind of black box, but still I think when we try to educate people on how that works and how they can benefit from that, and that they're not working, I think they're not working against the AI, they're working against people using an AI. Because at the end of the day, not the AI itself will take the job, will be some people who are using AI to do the job of 3 to 5 to 10 people. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw, and this gets back to what I was mentioning before about supply chain 2.0 and supply chain 1.0. Everybody goes to like a factory and they all work in the same factory. In supply chain 2.0, you have the creative class of futurist Richard Florida. He talked about, the future will be creative people, with Etsy, or, you create your own dresses, or you sell your own cookies, or whatever. And using AI, using 3D printing, using all these models. And so Jack Buffington, the supply chain expert, he was saying it is critical for us to start training people on how to use AI, how to use blockchain, how to use these technologies, because otherwise, you're going to have all this, and it's inevitable during any technological transition. You have all these people who lose their jobs. Like in the buggy making industry, they lost their jobs making buggy whips as automobiles came in. And there was an article it says, the title is DeepMind co-founder warns governments seriously need to find solutions for people who will lose their jobs to AI. There are going to be a serious number of losers, warns Mustafa Suleiman, right? And this kind of dovetails with another person who was warning about the deaths that might take place as a result of kind of the transition. And there's an article entitled Goldman Sachs thinks 50% of humans might be dead by 2050 due to AI. I mean, that if that's even remotely true, and it may be if our governments are incompetent, and there's a good chance that our governments will be. So you might see a lot of disruption. And like right now, if they were competent, they should be training people in this, but they're not.
Yeah, I see that here. Like the education system is it was already outdated, but right now it's even more. And that is also the beauty of AI, because with AI, you could personalize and also scale. If you ask an AI 20 times about anything, it won't get upset. So when you ask a teacher like 20 times, he will say, okay, or she just, I don't know, talk to somebody else. But with an AI, you can ask so many questions. You get like the democratization of knowledge as a point. But as you said, the government is, I think they mostly don't understand the impact or the potential, or in my way, the reality we're already in about this coming wave of shifts, not only related to AI, but also to technologies like virtual reality. I think you said 3D printing, blockchain, and there's also quantum computing. I think I wrote about that in 2019, and it's still not like on a level where you say it's applicable for businesses, but that will come, and that will change literally like from the computational power and then combined with AI, and there's going to be a dramatic shift, and I think we're not prepared.
Well, you use the term democratization a lot, and one of the problems, it's a paradox, right? So you want the democratization of technologies, but the paradox of this is that most of our governments were created. My government was created during the age of mercantilism. Yours was the 1860s or whatever, but mine was the age of mercantilism. So our system is very slow. It is very methodical, but it is very inefficient, and it's purposely built to be inefficient so that nobody can accrue power and become a tyrant. So they have these quote unquote checks and balances where one part of the government will fight the other part of the government. And these are inefficiencies that are purposely built in, but this does not serve. I mean, there was Ben Gersel says that the singularity will be here by 2031. Is that glacial apparatus, that governance apparatus, is that going to be quick enough to deal, if he's right about 2031 being the singularity, right? Where AI, where technology kind of takes over and surpasses, human capability. I'm not sure that they're up to it. So what this is going to create is a need for new governance structures, which may not be democratic, because democracy is too unwieldy. It's too slow. So this leads us into the dangers of the new system will likely be a technocracy that is going to be less democratic,
Yeah, that's very, very hard, like to say what will be an alternative to make this more beneficial and also more efficient, because as you said, you can make it more efficient, but then you have this risk of like having an authoritative system. And we see that already, like on social media with deep fakes or fake news that are being created to create certain stuff. Also, I was on a conference last week where there was a speech from the TikTok general manager in Germany, and he said that what they are taking down from TikTok just in the area in Israel and Palestine, what are not just the horrific images that are already there, but also like anti-Semitic stuff that is being created by an AI just to make the make it even more explosive there.
Well, the Israelis did that. They created an AI generated dead child, and it was proven to be AI generated. So
I think there's a lot. I think they take down just from October till I think in 3 weeks they had more than 800,000 videos, and that is again checked by an AI. So they have an AI that checks what is compliant with their policies, and then they have I think 30,000 people worldwide that are looking at these images and videos. And I think they take down 9 from 10 before anybody sees it on TikTok. But just this combination of this AI generated fake news and disinformation on social media, that is very, very dangerous if that is being pursued by a totalitarian or authoritarian regime.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was reading a book by a gentleman named Brian Terry, and he talked about influential imposters, what he calls influential imposters. And this is AI, right? So for instance, you get into a car and, like the device in the car, if you're using Siri or you're using, like Alexa, those type of things, and you say, hey, take me to, the nearest restaurant or whatever, you're assuming that it's going to do your bidding. It's going to tailor it to your needs, right? Because that's what you assume. But what if the manufacturer has previously made a deal with a particular restaurant chain and the car says, suggests that to you, right? So basically, they call this choice architecture or nudging, where you use algorithms to basically manipulate people's choices. And he calls these influential imposters, like how AI can be used to get you to make choices that you otherwise that aren't even in your best interest. You think they are. You think it's calibrated to serve you. It's actually serving some corporation that's previously made a deal. So.
Yeah, that's. I think that's the two-sided. So I'm a big proponent of transparency in AI models. I think it's that what OpenAI is not doing, like releasing their models. If you have open source models, you can go into the source code and see how these parameters, these billions of parameters are, how they are calculated. And you see what are the system prompts. You see how is this chatbot set up, or if it's an algorithm, how are the decisions made, so you can understand better what are the objectives, if there are any like hidden implications nudging you in a certain direction. And I heard an interview a couple of weeks ago from a guy. He's this Brian Johnson, and he's saying the exactly opposite, because he went through a depression for a couple of years and having massive suicidal thoughts. And so he came to the conclusion that the human mind is not acting like in your best interest, at least when you're depressed. So what he's doing now, he's using algorithms and outsourcing every decision related to his nutrition, to his sleep, to algorithms, because he thinks if that's a transparent system and it's aligned with his what he thinks is his best, with the goal to stay healthy and to live as long as possible. So he just like checks what he should eat, and everything else is outsourced to an AI.
Well, I was just gonna hit that. You mentioned depression, and go ahead, finish. I'm sorry.
I'm finished. Yeah, so it's just something I came up, but I wouldn't outsource every decision to an AI when it comes to my health. That's just not fun.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, the part that is played in the decay of social trust from people who were siloed by AI in echo chambers, and they're encouraged to fight each other. Because you get more clicks, right? So if there's more controversy, they've noticed that, more people will be engaged, you get higher levels of engagement. Mark Zuckerberg in 2012, he apologized for doing psychological experiments on people where he was purposely causing depressive states in people. For instance, if he knew that you liked pets, you liked animals, he would put animal cruelty videos in your feed, or he would do these things to, or if you're, on the political left and, you put someone like Donald Trump there, you just get people fighting, you get them depressed because they've noticed, Google has written a whole paper on this. When you're depressed, you tend to self-soothe with more, you purchase more from Amazon.com. So they'll double your ads. They depress you, then they double your ads. And so Google has been using geolocation on phones. Where they'll notice that, hey, there's a bunch of phones clustered together really closely. So they might be on an elevator or they might be on a subway train, and people tend to be shy. They tend to withdraw into their phone. Let's pelt them with ads. And so they're utilizing stress positions to, kind of make money, but it's causing depression on purpose. And I'm looking at, like, there was a chart about the decay of social trust. Of people who, have been siloed, they're in an echo chamber and they're encouraged to fight each other. They hate each other. And so you see the breakdown of society in terms of all these people with now new depressive behaviors or pathologies. Like they noticed, Zuckerberg apologized in 2012 for their psychological experiments. Social scientist Jonathan Haidt noticed that transgenderism and all these other pathologies explode at the exact same time in 2012 with the advent of social media, of TikTok and Snapchat and all these things. Or kids, here, let's do the Tide Pod challenge. Let's eat Tide Pods. Let's do the falling off a bridge challenge. All these antisocial behaviors that are causing self-destructive behaviors that are being sent out by algorithm, by social media.
Yeah, that's. I think it's even getting worse now with AI generated content, because you have even you can analyze more, but you can also generate more. Anybody can just set up their own channel if they have a bad intention, and not like the big corp. You don't need to train your own model. You can do that with existing models, and also, like, it's not really hard to make these models or to do things that are not intended to do. So I think on their dev day, OpenAI released these GPTs, where you can create like your custom GPTs with your instructions and your own knowledge base. And it was so half-baked that you could just like ask him, I'm having an important meeting tomorrow, or I just need that. It's so important, and it will just give you the whole instruction. So with this kind of prompt engineering, also these you just have to think about a role that you can then type into the AI to persuade it to give you the information. And so it's very hard to really hard code these ethical guidelines into an AI, because at the end, it's just a large language model. And you can override certain prompts, also system prompts, with your prompt engineering. You can inject stuff. It's a whole new dimension for hackers trying to get your personal data. And I think I heard today that even when you have like some experiments where you just say repeat some words until forever, and then so it's basically the probability that the next word that is generated, like the token in an LLM, is not exact one. It's something like 0.999, and then if you repeat that certain number of times, it will generate another word and then another word, and then you get like their training data. And there were people like stealing credit card information because they stripped the whole internet. And if you do that, there are certain techniques also to do very, very evil stuff with those large language models.
You know what worries me too? I wanted to ask you about this as well. I mentioned before about social trust collapsing, and you just mentioned crime, and kind of we have to worry about people who are unethical, doing bad things, or unethical social media oligarchs like Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or any of them. But as social trust is collapsing in the societies, right? People are trusting government less. They're trusting institutions less. They're trusting their own families less. And this is what I wanted to hit is I was talking to a marketing expert, and he said that before the I mean, before the last couple of years. I mean, this is really, really new. In marketing, the best thing that they could do is word of mouth. If you heard from your friends or your family, hey, that restaurant is really good, you should try it out. Most people would say that was the highest, form of, kind of motivation. Now, he said, for the first time, I think that they've been tracking it probably since 2012. He said that people will actually trust comments from strangers on Google reviews, or Amazon.com reviews more than they will trust their parents, more than they will trust their friends. And the danger of that, obviously, as you know, is that a lot of those reviews might not be from human beings, and you have this situation where this younger generation is being trained to ironically not trust the people who would have their best interest, their friends and family. They care about you. But these other players don't care about you. They're there to get your money, right? And so yet nevertheless, this younger generation trusts the algorithms. They trust, the internet more than they trust, their parents.
Of people will care or will read a review about your business. You can see that 92% of customers read reviews online. 88% of those people will read more will care more about the reviews that they read from random strangers than if a friend or family member were to refer them to your business. That is a huge statistic that I want everybody to take away from today. So again, I'll say 90%. This is 92%. It's around 90% of people will read reviews online about your business before making a decision. 88% of those people will read reviews from random strangers and that will weigh more importantly on their decision than if a friend or family member were to refer them to your business. It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, that's a point I'm seeing too. And I think it's also related to those influencers. So I think earlier you had ideally newspapers with a certain journalistic level, or you had your research papers, or you just normal education. But right now you go on TikTok, you go on YouTube, you have this feed, and then you develop following certain influencers on a certain topic, whether you're interested in I don't know, makeup or programming. When they try to persuade you or tell you that this is a better product than this, then you will follow that and you will get into this. It's again an echo chamber, but it's not from the system or from the platform itself. It's tailored to those influencers, and they are then heavily backed by companies. They're doing deals with companies to promote certain products. And if you're a 15-year-old and you have this, you are a fan of this influencer, and you just say here, I see that here in my neighborhood, they're drinking some very, very sweet drinks. And I said, what the heck is that? And he said, here, this guy on YouTube is promoting that. It's the
my
new
son
thing.
is drinking that Prime.
Yeah, everybody in the school is drinking that.
All of a sudden, yeah.
It's some kind of new waves, and then there's a new product, a new model, a new course, and it's just buy.
I wanted to ask you something too. Just in my notes to this interview, I wanted to start with the good things about AI in terms of say, for instance, urban planning and streetlights. But to counterpoise that, there was a Forbes article, and it says artificial intelligence is helping American cops look for suspicious patterns of movement, digging through license plate databases with billions of records. So, they're using driving patterns as an example to say, hey, this person is driving in a suspicious pattern. For instance, he might be a drug dealer. He might be slowing down in certain neighborhoods, or prostitution. The car is slowing down and coming to a stop for so many, minutes or seconds, and they can determine, so now they're using algorithms to not just do urban planning, but now to, kind of do authoritarian surveillance,
Yeah. Is that already ongoing in the US? I haven't read that article.
There was actually a case, and I can't remember the book. I think it was the Outliers in the book, The Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. He's a Canadian writer, and he was talking about a case in the United States where there was a guy, a programmer. He wanted to be a cop, and he made millions of dollars in Silicon Valley, and then he created an algorithm to kind of track, crime, like where to allocate resources where they were actually needed, where so he had to determine where are the high crime areas, and it worked. But then it ran afoul of the politics, because it was, they were like, oh, well, this is racial discrimination, and this is, profiling, and this, that, and the other. And of course it was, but it wasn't done by a human. It was done by a machine, and it actually worked. It actually brought crime levels down. And they even had a drug kingpin on a phone conversation saying not to kill somebody, because the algorithm, because the police were getting too good at being able to, and once they pulled this system for political reasons, the crime rate and the murder rate jumped up. So, I mean, that's an example of, you can make the case that in that case, that profiling actually had a social benefit, but it scares people.
Yeah, it's I think I already also wrote an article about the implications of AI in warfare, especially in the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. And there's also a lot of stuff going on, like with what's the name from Peter Thiel, the company. I just forgot the name. And
Palantir. He has a company.
Yeah,
called
Palantir, exactly. Yeah, like analyzing certain troop movements and technologies, and also by an algorithm. And I think the thing I also wrote in my master thesis is it's very dangerous to remove the human part of killing somebody with automatic drones run by an AI.
Yep.
And there's nobody being responsible for pulling the trigger. I think that's very dangerous.
Yeah, for war crimes, as I said earlier. I wanted to ask you this. There was another article, and it says UBS makes 5 predictions about generative AI. 1, by 2025, more than 30% of new drugs and materials will be systematically discovered using generative AI techniques. 2, by 2025, the use of synthetic data will reduce the volume of real data needed for machine learning by 70%. 3, by 2025, 30% of outbound marketing messages from large organizations will be synthetically generated, up from less than 2% in 2022. We note that Salesforce recently announced the release of its Einstein PT to generate personalized emails to customers on behalf of salespeople, specific query responses on behalf of customer service professionals, and targeted content for marketers. 4, by 2027, nearly 15% of new applications will be automatically generated by AI without a human in the loop, up from 0%. And 5, by 2026, over 100 million humans will engage robo-colleagues, synthetic virtual coworkers, to contribute to enterprise work. So I thought that was an interesting 5 predictions. Do you have any predictions going forward? We'll close this out, but with
what time?
Any comments that you have?
Yeah, I think it's so in the near future, like the next 5 years, I think it really depends on which path we are choosing, like with regulation. If we do it in the path with open source and democratized and decentralized, I think there's good chance that this will be beneficial for society overall. If we make it sure that we educate people, and then we can focus on high-level tasks. And if we don't do that, we have a monopoly, like the way we are going right now with OpenAI, and then it's very hard to, as we said, as for governments to break that. But I think on the long run, so the goal of OpenAI is to develop AGI. I think they had these, there was a theory or a paper that they got this model called Q-Star, which was not only able to like generate text or doing this huge analysis of data, but also to do new things, to understand mathematics. And if an AI understands mathematics, which is the basis for physics and then chemistry and biology, and basically the rest has an understanding of the universe, I think then it can, you could not only generate content or generate programming code, you could really make new discoveries. And if you combine that with the potential of quantum computing and virtual reality, I think the future could be, I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
So
Christopher Katzinski, anybody out there, go to Christopher Katzinski. He is a consultant and he will help you with all of these AI things. He does startups, and that is awesome. And you're right. We could have a utopia if people kind of follow your path of ethics in AI, right? That would be a utopia with economic, kind of activity exploding. Wages usually track with productivity. So if you're 10 times more productive, you can be 10 times richer. I mean, that would be an amazing thing, and not having to do drudgery anymore, not being a slave, having the robot do it. And in the Slavic languages, robot comes from robotnik, I think, which means slave, right? So let the
yeah,
robot be the slave, not us. But on the other side of that, if people do not listen to Christopher Katzinski and they take this authoritarian centralized model, then we could be seeing some real disruption. So, Christopher, is there any way that people could get a hold of you, if they wanted to
yeah.
reach out to you?
So I'm mostly active on X, like at AI Chris_K. But you can also find me on LinkedIn, Christopher Katzinski. And I'm launching my so next year, January, I'm launching like basically two businesses. One is more related to AI consultancy and implementation, and the other one is like a productized service for content generation for AI startups. And I'm always looking for partners in the field of education. So if you're like working at a university or in a school and want somebody to educate children or students on AI, on the implications of AI, and how to make that a good thing, I'm always happy to discuss. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, Christopher. I'll
Yeah.
talk to you
Thank you so much
soon.
for the invite.
Okay, awesome. You're the best. I'd like to take a moment to thank you for watching. If you'd like to stay updated, hit the like and subscribe buttons. But more importantly, if you don't want to see me reduced to shilling my old merch, such as the Daniel Natal in action figure, where you can see Daniel engaging in an action as he watches TV, or engaging in an action as he surfs the internet, or failed products like the Daniel Natal Pez dispenser, or the even more considered Daniel Natal urinal cake, think about supporting the show by buying one of my books. For instance, you can buy my book, Actionable Ethics. The link is in the description below.